All right, everyone, I'm right here. See my hands over here. I know you can't see me too well. It is Florida State Seminoles Live. It's our 5th edition. And Florida State, the Sunshine State. Yeah, I'm trying to I've got my garnet on. It all works. I know you can't see me, but again, it works in regards to Florida State football talk. Here each and every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time. All right, we got Logan Robinson on the line from Knoll Game Day and Jason Parker from Chop Chat. Gentlemen, how you doing?
Good day, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Wonderful.
Plenty of sunshine here, but I was locked in a audio conference all day, but I'm free and I'm ready to talk some college football.
Logan's in Tallahassee. I'm near Fort Lauderdale. You're in Connecticut. You're the one with the most sunlight. I'm not trying to figure this out right now.
For one day out of 365, yes, that would be.
Yeah. Finally get some sun. Maybe get you a tanlet.
There we go.
We actually, I don't know which state would get more sun. Actually, the truth be told, there is some sun up here in Connecticut. It's just usually 22 degrees and sunny. That's the way it typically is.
A light breeze,
A light, brisk breeze.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we're here to talk Florida State football. We welcome everyone in here each and every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time. And of course, to get your friends, your family, your social media acquaintances set for the upcoming season. Just don't hog up all the insight and the information and knowledge yourself. Get some other people online to join us each and every Wednesday night, as we're just 3 or 4 weeks away from ACC Media Days, and then the boys hit the field that first week of August.
Is it here yet? Come on, August 31st. Good.
No, again, there's a difference between living in Connecticut and living in Florida. We don't want the summer to leave too quickly.
That is true.
You're not rooting for football season to get here too quickly. Yes, I love football as much as anybody on the planet, but let's keep it 85 degrees and sunny. Let's do that. Before we get to the talk, I'm going to remind everyone that you can help support the channel by grabbing the Amazon link in the description section below. Shop at Amazon using that link. Also, yes, we also have an audio version of this you're watching, so we assume you prefer the video, but if anyone out there prefers the audio will be available each and every week as well. Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and Google Play. Just search MarkRogersTV and look for Florida State Seminoles Live. Also, the Super Chat's on, so you can help support the channel. So, guys, just this week, I had somebody say, you need to do a Michigan live show. You need to do a Clemson live show. You need to do an LSU live show. And somebody else, you need to do a Florida live show. You need to contribute to the channel, and we'll add some on, even if Jason doesn't like it.
Not the last one. I'm fine with the first ones, but the last one, nope, not happening.
No. Okay. All right. And also you can contribute by going to the Voice of College Football Community. That link's below as well, the Voice of College Football Community. You get 2 exclusive live streams from me every week where I bring you on to talk college football roundtable style, like with these gentlemen right here, and also where I respond to your viewer comments. All right, Logan, I believe that you had something to say before we get to our much anticipated ACC coaches rankings. You had some thoughts about the wide receiver core.
Yes, I did. And I wanted to ask Jason on his opinion too, because I just got done doing an IG live show, and one of the questions I thought was pretty bright was what the 4th wide receiver in the rotation would be for Florida State heading into the fall. And I'll name a few that we saw who James Blackman was throwing to the most, with DJ Matthews, of course, Keyshawn Helton, and also one of his favorites who had a pretty decent spring was Keith Gavin, which we know he's had a tough career at Florida State. But then there's even younger guys. There's a guy, then there's also Tamarion Terry, but you've got guys like even Jordan Young, Warren Thompson, and we had a flash of Trayshawn Harrison last year. So Ron Dugans has a packed position group right now with a lot of talented dudes. I'm interested to get your take on who that 4th guy would be, because he's going to be a young one.
If you're telling me right now, if you're asking me, first of all, I think it's funny that you forgot Terry's name there for a moment.
I know I did for a second. I know I already like place him into the solidified starting four.
Tamorrion Terry is going to be the number one guy, and you kind of forgot him a little bit, but it's cool.
Yeah.
I think he'll be number one. I think Gavin and Helton will probably fight for number two. If you're asking me right now, out of the group you mentioned, probably Warren Thompson would be the guy for me. Kid from down in the Tampa Bay area. It's going to be tough. To me, and we've talked about this in the past, to me, I think the offense is going to be centered around the running game first, Cam Akers, as far as him being the main guy, the number one guy. And then from there, I think it's going to be a case of James Blackman filling in from there. Do I think James Blackman has the ability and the arm to throw for 2,500, 3,000 yards in the season? Absolutely. I think it's going to take a couple games to see that. And as we talked about, if he can throw for 300 yards against Boise State, I'm going to be a lot happier, a lot less concerned than I am right now at this point. But if you're asking me for a fourth wide receiver, probably Warren Thompson will be mine. What about you?
I'm kind of iffy on this one because I know what DJ Matthews brings, and we saw how James Blackman worked with him during the NC State game when he got the start at quarterback there. He connected well with McKitty too. He's a tight end, but he worked with a little bit of the younger guys. Also in that game, he was working with Nooney, but Nooney's gone. So I'm just trying to look at past things and see who he connects pretty well with passing wise. I'm kind of thinking it kind of goes in order: Tamorrion Terry, DJ Matthews. After what I saw, definitely during the spring, I think he's one of the best route runners we've seen since Kenny Shaw. I heard a lot of good things about Keyshawn Helton. Warren Thompson had some flashes during the spring. I think it's a really good question. I think there would be a lot of rotation, but I'd go Tamorrion Terry, DJ Matthews, Keyshawn Helton, and I think it's a fight between. This is tough. It's so tough because Keith Gavin had a rough career so far at Florida State, but I think it's gonna be a fight between Keith Gavin and Warren Thompson. But there's talented guys like Jordan Young that are still waiting there that Tennessee was trying really hard at the end of his recruitment to grab him because they knew how talented he was.
My one concern with Matthews is I think he has flashes of greatness. I mean, a lot of it on special teams. He had good, punt returns. Obviously, the Miami game, the touchdown against the Canes. I'm concerned about his consistency. Can he do it for a full 12-game season? He had flashes of brilliance as a freshman, flashes last year. Can he do it consistently to be one of the top three? That's why I've left him out for the moment. Can he get back in there very quickly? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But for right now, that would be my one question mark.
Mm-hmm. I think it plays a lot too with the quarterback role this year. You got a different guy that I believe reads the field better than DeAndre Francois did last year. He kind of is not going to stare down his receivers as much as Francois did. And I don't know. I mean, we just kind of got hints and we saw things during the spring, but things can change in the fall for sure. But most definitely, you got a quarterback that likes throwing the ball deep, or he has a better talent at doing that, I should say. He's more accurate. And that's where, of course, Tamorrion Terry can play a vital role. And, Taggart likes, going and also Bryles too, but he'll be kind of quiet with it for a little bit, but then he'll go for a deep ball on you out of nowhere. And I think Blackman brings a nice touch for that wide receiver core, definitely with Dugans there as coach.
Let's not give Francois too much. Let's not rile him up too much since we're going to see him on November 16th, apparently.
That's right.
Rumors come true, and he ends up at Alabama State. I'm still trying to figure out that one because in South Florida, there was the whole talk of him walking on FAU. You kind of wondered how that one was going to go. But now if he ends up at Alabama State, that's going to be interesting. November 16th. Mm-hmm. That one will be interesting. I don't think it makes Alabama State closer to upsetting us, but I think it makes it interesting. We'll leave it at that one.
Oh, wow. Ooh. That's an interesting. I think it wouldn't even be. I think
hold on, time out. No. Florida State still kills Alabama State. No.
Yeah.
Respect there. I just think it will be interesting to see him
Yeah.
being tackled in an opposing uniform as opposed to in burning gold.
Yeah, see if they really want to hit him as hard as, some of them called him a brother whenever they were in the locker room. So, yeah, that's an interesting thing. We're trying to keep an eye on that because and it was reported from two people that cover FAU down there that he did indeed visit Alabama State all day. And I think this is happening because of the FAU quarterback that got reinstated after suspension. So Francois is looking at maybe other opportunities. And if it were to be Alabama State, then yes, Florida State would play DeAndre Francois the week before facing the Gators, or 2 weeks before facing the Gators in Gainesville. So.
Mark, we were talking about this to give you more time to move Willie up on your top ACC coaches list. That's why we were talking to
You guys stretched it well enough. You did a nice job, definitely. It's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. This is our Florida State live stream each and every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time. And you are certainly on the live chat. Welcome to send us your comments and questions that I will serve up to Jason and to Logan. And you can do so while we anticipate my schooling and enlightening of Jason on the hierarchy of ACC coaches. All right. So a few shout outs here, and I apologize because I couldn't rewind all the way to the beginning of the super chat, of the live chat, I should say, the chat room, which reminds me we do have the super chat on. So if you love what we do here in delivering the best in college football content each and every day, best discussion, debate, and analysis, then please support us in the super chat. Mr. Sugar Dove, Deep Barat, Rob Krause is checking in, and he later in the live chat has his top 4 wide receivers listed. We'll get to that in just a second. We got Daniel on the line. We've got Greg G. We've got Cheryl. We've got all sorts of good folks. George, of course, big Florida Gator fan.
Oh, come on, George.
Supports the channel by showing up for a Florida State live show each and every week. And so does Cheryl, as an Ohio State fan, showing up for my other shows. Greatly appreciated. Bobby Swinson tuning in from Tucson,
Arizona.
And all sorts of folks here. We got D predicting the Noles go 15-0. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Someone's drinking.
D, that's what June is all about. D, you just bask in it right now, buddy.
I love my alma mater. I'm proud to be a Seminole. They will not go 15-0 this year. I'm going to make that bold prediction right here months before the season. They will not.
That is bold. That is a bold prediction.
Will not. Sorry, I apologize. I hope, I pray that it happens, but I'm going to be a betting man and say that they will not go 15-0 this season.
If only you could make that bet in Vegas. Yeah, I don't think Florida State's going to go 15-0. Here's my $1,000.
I'm going to go over on that.
They're drinking.
Rob Krause, a dedicated Florida State fan, says Terry's the one receiver, Helton 2, DJ 3, and Thompson 4.
Okay.
No love for Keith Gavin. All right. But.
Yeah, that's understandable. I mean, I mean, I know it's a solid spring from Keith Gavin, and it was just mainly off of how he did with connecting well with James Blackman. I mean, this is a different quarterback. He'll have his better guys. We saw Francois fit better with Nooney Murray last year. I mean, continuously and maybe too much. But I'm interested. That's a position group. I just thought it was a good question earlier, and it brought up a good conversation for us. We will see how that rotation goes. But Trayshawn Harrison is another guy that showed some signs of future talent at Florida State. Peter Warwick even noted on him. He also noted on DJ Matthews too. So they got a nice, talented core, and Ron Dugans has got to be happy about it heading into August.
As we talked about, this is a unit who is going to be on their third offensive coordinator in 3 seasons. So that's why I'm not expecting 3,000-yard receivers and James Blackman to throw up numbers that Jameis Winston threw up in 2013. I'm expecting a good year. 8-win season, maybe 3,000 yards for James. But yeah, I mean, that's the growth. And I think Gavin, to me, falls on the same line as a DJ Matthews. I need to see some consistency out of him. When he plays his game, he's amazing. Can we get that for more than 3 or 4 games in a season. That would be my concern heading into this year.
Yeah, I agree.
Navy Thomas, one of the faithful. Thanks so much for joining us. Navy Thomas, right with me from way, way, way back. Cheryl hopes Florida beats you thugs.
Ooh. Who's
on the live chat?
Talking about Florida State.
They have Wi-Fi in the trailer parks? Oh, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
She's an Ohio State fan. I don't know why she's taking the Gators' side, since there have been more heartbreaking losses in that direction than in the Florida State direction for the Ohio State University.
Urban Meyer recruited people who killed people and then went to Ohio State. We're just going to leave it at that. Cheryl, thanks for watching. God bless.
Fresh 3542 says 3 losses. Clemson alum 98's on board. Mike Myrick checking in from Tallahassee. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. All right. We've got 46 on the line. Bring more on and let people know that we're here each and every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time. We got Logan Robinson on the line from Knoll Game Day. We've got Jason Parker on the line from Chop Chat. I'll let you serve up your tag, Jason.
Oh, I was just kidding about that earlier. I mean, we are your number one.
It was well stated. It was well stated, well written.
We are your number one source for FSU athletics in our own mind at the moment right now. I'm sure Knoll Game Day would disagree with that. I'm sure Logan would disagree. We will combine and say we are both your number one source.
There we go.
There we go. We are combining our forces.
We do.
Simply an impartial platform.
That's right. That's called staying in the line right there. You know.
Yep. I don't even have to say anything. It makes my life easy. I can look up stats and stuff while you're saying that.
All right, Logan, since Jason has already contested my rankings of ACC coaches, I think it best be ordered that you start off with your rankings, and then Jason and I will, I guess, go at it.
Let me look at something real quick.
We're making June adjustments to our ACC coaches rankings. Did somebody have a bad day at practice or something recently?
Someone didn't do their homework. That's all I'm saying.
It was a tough.
Logan. You study. Jason will start.
Yeah, Jason's got. I thought he wanted to lead off anyways for last week. He said he was ready to unleash it because I wanted to comment on whatever silliness was being brought up.
Okay, we'll do that.
All right. So, in full disclosure to our viewers, where this came from was a few weeks ago we put on Chop Chat there an article that there was another website that ranked Willie as the worst of the returning coaches. Worst of the 10 returning coaches in the ACC entering the 2019 season, ranking him below 2 newcomers, including somebody who hasn't coached the ACC in well over a decade.
Jason, I almost promised to not interrupt again, but how can somebody rank him as the worst returning coach and then say, what was the next line that you gave? It was contradictory to that one.
No, what I said was that I find it hard to believe that, number one, you're going to rank 2 new coaches ahead of him, including somebody who just came to a 2-10 Louisville team from Appalachian State.
That has nothing to do with the man's coaching ability.
That's no disrespect to Appalachian State. My argument is, how can you rank 2 people? It was Louisville's Scott Satterfield and Mac Brown were both ranked ahead of Willie Taggart. My argument is, how can you rank them ahead of somebody when neither one of them has coached at that school? And I know people say, oh, Mac Brown used to coach at North Carolina. He hasn't coached at North Carolina in over a decade and a half. You cannot rank them ahead at this point because you don't know what Satterfield's going to do at Louisville. You don't know what Mac Brown is going to do with this North Carolina team. So that was my argument about why neither one of them should be ranked ahead of Willie Taggart.
So before we hear your rankings, if Nick Saban got fired by Alabama, if it were possible, tomorrow and got the job at Wake Forest, you would rank him 14th in the ACC coaches rankings.
If you're asking my opinion, yes, I would put him. If he was one of the new coaches, I would not put him as the top coach in the ACC. Number one, I wouldn't put him ahead of Dabo Swinney.
Okay, that's fine.
Right now. But no, I would not put him as number one until I've seen what he can do with the product.
Would he be number 2?
I mean, you're putting gun to my head. Nick Saban's a different animal, but no, probably not. Not right now. I would not. Listen, you ask, you want answers. If you're Mark
Okay,
Rogers,
it's an interesting ranking system.
You are Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. This is what you're going to get here.
All right, I will not interrupt again. I will be taking notes, and then I'll fire away.
I also found the article that you're talking about, so now I had to find it, but I can base off of what silliness is about to come out.
Okay. Well, it's some silliness that's coming out.
I think I found it. I think it's because they've got Dabo 1 and Nick Saban 2, right? And that was ranking the ACC and the SEC together.
Well, ours came from. I mean, I don't want to put out another website, but it was a CBS Sports article, CBSSports.com.
Yes,
we talked about there. So I'll give you mine right now. Now I'll say that.
I'm sorry, Jason. Did I promise not to interrupt you? I'm going to do it one more time. Right. Who in the world is ranking two conferences? You either rank individual conferences or you rank everyone. You don't. What is the next ranking going to be? Big Ten and Pac-12? What do they have to do with each other? That makes absolutely no sense.
Well, number 1 is Dabo Swinney, and the very bottom is Willie Taggart at 28. And Mac Brown is number 23.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's an SEC, ACC coaches rankings. That makes absolutely no sense either. Okay.
Yep.
Jason. I mean, we're the same region, so it works out there, except for Boston College and Missouri and everyone else. But other than that, it's all the Southeast. Oh.
I'm going to pick two divisions in the NFL and rank their coaches. The AFC West and the NFC East. There you go.
The Chicago Bears are the only team that has won both an AFC division and an NFC division in the last 2 years. They swept the AFC North last year, and then they swept the NFC North this year.
Hopefully, we never get any more random than that with our trivia.
You want randomness? You come to ChopChat.com. We've got some randomness for you right there. All right. So we've been waiting 2 weeks for this. If there's no more interruptions from Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, we're good, Mark?
You can slam me if you include the tag every time. That's fine.
Okay. Every single time, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. All right. So what I'm going to do is, number one, in my opinion, because I think the new coaches have not proven anything yet, I would rank the 4 new coaches in the ACC in spots 11 through 14. I'd put Scott Satterfield at Louisville at 14. I'd put Mac Brown at North Carolina at 13. Jeff Collins from Georgia Tech I have at 12. And Manny Diaz at the University of Miami I have at 11th right now. Can they all move up? Yes. And I think Miami will be a team that will compete in the Coastal Division, so I can see Manny moving up on that list. But right now, I think because they're new, because you don't know, I have to put them there. All right. At number 10, I have Pat Narduzzi from Pittsburgh, because I'm still trying to figure out how in the heck they won the Coastal Division last year and how they ended up playing in the ACC championship game. And I think Pittsburgh is going to take a step back this year. At 9, I have Steve Adazio from Boston College. I can see them taking a step back this year. I don't know if I want to say a losing season in Chestnut Hill, but it's going to be interesting. That's going to be a toss-up team right there. I think they have the ability to shock some teams like Clemson, like FSU. They also have the ability to get blown out to a team like Wake Forest. Speaking of Wake Forest, number 8, Dave Clawson, I have him right there. I think they're a team that could possibly move up. I will watch out for that. At 7, I have Justin Fuente from Virginia Tech. I think that's another team that has both the potential to have 10 wins and has the potential to be 6-6. Dave Doran from NC State, I have him at 6. Then at number 5 is where I have Willie Taggart. Now I have Willie behind, obviously at number 1, I have Dabo Swinney. I think he's number 1, number 2, and number 3 combined right now in the ACC. But I have him at number 1. I have Bronco Mendenhall at number 2 from Virginia. I've got Dino Babers right now at number 3 from Syracuse. Now that's going off last year. I think Syracuse does take a step back this year, so I think he could fall down, but this is entering the season. I think right now, Dino Babers is the 3rd best coach. And I think David Cutcliffe, I have him at number 4 because of what he has done and made Duke a relevant football program to the level that Duke has never seen as far as consistency. Now, I have Willie at number 5 right now because I think FSU has the potential to be a 9-10 win team this season. Do I think it'll happen? You'll have to read shopchat.com later in August. That's a plug right there. But I think that potential, the ability that it's starting to be seen right now. You take a look. There's the article from Bleacher Report that I was going to give James Coleman, if he ever returns to us here. I was going to give him a plug because they're interviewing the writer tomorrow. But Willie Taggart is not to blame for what took place last year. Willie Taggart was doing what he could with what he had. In 2019, what he has is something a lot better. He has guys who knows the system. He has guys who are buying into what he is selling in Tallahassee. Does that make him an 8-win coach, a 9-win coach? I think it does. And I think he right now is a top 5 coach in the ACC. Am I saying he is the best coach? No. Am I saying he's number 2 behind Dabo? No. But to sit there and put him behind a Mac Brown who hasn't coached in years, hasn't coached in the ACC in a decade and a half, to put him behind Scott Satterfield, who's going to be rebuilding a 2-10 Louisville team. That, to me, I can't do that. I can't put Willie down there with that group right there.
All right. That's Jason's list. And Jason, since I did not jot down your list, what I will be asking is as I go through my list, 14 all the way up to number 1, that you let me know where you ranked each and one of these individual coaches here. So does this necessarily mean that I believe Manny Diaz is the worst coach in the ACC? No, it does not. This simply means that he has no head coaching experience at this level or anything close to it. Therefore, I'm ranking him 14th right now. I do think that he needs to defeat teams that we've seen Miami lose to fairly consistently over the last couple of years. Georgia Tech, Duke, Virginia. He at least has to beat those teams. He has to turn in a decent effort for me to raise him highly up the rankings. They have the most talent, the best talent in the division. If they don't win the division, let's say they go 8-4, don't win the division, I don't think that's a catastrophe. It's a first season. There's always a period to get acclimated and get adjusted to the culture and the way of doing things for a new head football coach, especially an entirely new head football coach. But Manny Diaz obviously has the advantages of knowing Miami, the culture, the surroundings, the campus, the players, everything in place. So Manny Diaz right now I have ranked as 14th in the ACC because he has no track record, none.
I'm going to stop you right on Manny Diaz, though, and he also gets the credit to where as long as he has a better record than last season, as long as Miami finishes better than 7-6, he's going to get a pass as far as the Miami fans, as far as the Miami faithful, the graduates, and the alumni. He's a Miami native, son of the former mayor. People ignore the fact he went to Florida State. Yeah, that's right. You had to get an FSU guy to coach your team. Just never forget that. But he is getting almost a pass because everyone looks at him as the next great coach. They automatically think he's going to be the next Howard Schnellenberger, the next Jimmy Johnson. Do I think he's going to be there 1 year? No. But I think as long as he does a little bit better than Mark Richt, as far as record-wise, I think he's good to go. So he'll quickly rise up both of our list very quickly.
Whoever's calling the call-in line, this is not the time. So thank you so much for the call-in, but we will take calls at another time. All right. So I believe that generally a first-year head coach should be given a pass to a certain extent, unless, of course, he takes top 15 talent and goes 5-7. All right. At number 13, we would go with Jeff Collins of Georgia Tech. Who had a nice little run at Temple, went 15-10, succeeded. Matt Rule had set him up very well, so he took over a very, very solid to very good group of 5 program. Went 7-1 in the conference last year, came very close to winning the conference championship. So I'm going to start Jeff Collins at number 13 ahead of Manny Diaz because he has proven capable of taking a Power 5 team and winning and, of course, doing the job. So he's proven himself capable. Has to prove to be a better recruiter than Paul Johnson. Obviously, he's going to be running a conventional offense and going to be playing on somewhat of a level playing field with everybody else in regards to scheme. And he's surrounded by Atlanta. And I know he's got challenges in the recruiting front because of the academic standards at the institution, but still, he's in one of the great recruiting bases in college football. And hopefully with for Georgia Tech's sake, with the change in offense, he can take advantage of that. So I got Jeff Collins at number 13. At number 12, did I get that right? Or should he be number 5? Oh, no. Yeah, number 12, Willie Taggart. So I will explain how I approach these rankings. So my first thought is, how would I draft these coaches? If I just had a football team right now and we're going to play the season, how would I draft these coaches and want them to, in what order would I want them to coach my team? And the reason I state it that way is, let's say this is 10 years ago. Bobby Bowden and Joe Paterno are two of the 5 to 10 greatest coaches in the history of college football. Were they two of the greatest coaches in college football in 2007 or 8? No, they might not have been 25. They had lost their fastball, both of them. They were not two of the better coaches in college football. So if you're doing an all-time ranking, of course, their track record would say, oh, they're still the greatest coaches in the nation. But no, not right then. In the here and now were they still elite coaches. Therefore, I look at the here and now. But there is a track record to be considered. If a particular coach has a bad season, maybe Willie Taggart's a good coach. Maybe he's a decent coach. That's how I'd categorize him. Maybe he had a bad season. So I'm weighing both of those, track record versus taking his one opportunity thus far to have a really good team against a marginal schedule, decent schedule, not an overwhelming schedule, and only win 5 games with that team. That weighed him down. I would have to go back, because I cut a video on this each and every year. I would love to go back and see where I ranked him following his 7-5 Oregon season, going into the Florida State job with no track record in the ACC, but a track record in college football. I think I had him ranked maybe 6th or 7th in the conference at that point. But that was just embarrassing performance. It was not only 5-7. Oh my goodness, the performance week to week. They played what I would consider 3 decent ball games. They almost beat Miami. Mm-hmm. They bludgeoned Wake Forest, a decent team, by 3 touchdowns. And they squeaked by Boston College by a point. So those aren't overwhelming wins. I'm not saying that they went out there and beat somebody that they shouldn't have beaten. I'm just saying that they showed up 3 times and played 3 decent games. The other 9 games generally were a disaster, week after week. I watched them play Syracuse. That was a debacle. I watched them play, of course, Virginia Tech on opening night. That was a debacle. Scoring 3 points against that defense? How does that even happen?
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you now.
42 points against him. That was just atrocious. He never pulled it together. The entire season was just a train wreck.
So now I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second.
Okay.
So here's my question to you. Number 1, in the Syracuse game, yes, the final score was 30-7. I believe it was 6-0 at halftime. So let's carry that one for one moment. Okay.
But he's an offensive coach.
Hold on a second. At the Virginia Tech game, they scored, I believe it was 1 touchdown off of a turnover and another touchdown off a blocked punt. Am I saying Florida State wins both of those games? No, probably not. But what I'm saying is let's look at everything. I feel like MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football on YouTube, I feel like you're looking at the whole thing. I feel like and I'm not just saying you, and I'm not just picking on you. I think there's a segment of the population that's saying FSU went 5-7, let's pile on Willie Taggart. And we talked about this last week about why that might be from a certain segment of the population and a certain segment of the college football fan base. My argument is this right now. You said that right now, Willie Taggart, that your argument was he was 12th amongst ACC coaches about who you would want to lead your team. Well, did I misinterpret that? Or is this as far as like which coach would you pick to draft your team?
Generally, that was the first tenet in how I approach it. That's maybe not the complete final result.
Okay, so my argument...
But that's a strong consideration, yes.
My argument against that would be this. You're telling me right now, just by the 3 coaches you've gone through on your list, and once again, viewers, there's no right or wrong list. This is just our opinion on this one. You would take Mack Brown, who, Florida State grad, love him as a Seminole, but who hasn't coached a game since 2013, has been busy in the broadcasting booth with ESPN and ABC. You would take him right now over Willie Taggart coaching a team.
This is who I would definitely take right this second over Willie Taggart. Definitely. Dabo.
Okay.
I'm taking Bronco Mendenhall. I'm taking Dave Clawson. Absolutely. David Cutcliffe. I think there's some consideration there. I'll take Cutcliffe. I think Dave Clawson's exceptional. I'm taking Scott Satterfield. I'm taking, and then the guys that I would have to think about are a glut of coaches. Dave Doran. I think I take Taggart over Narduzzi. I think about Adazio. Steve Adazio is going 7-5 year after year after year at Boston College with recruiting classes. Who is beating a path? What 4 and 5 stars are beating a path to Boston to go play for the Boston College Eagles in front of 32,000 people every week? Nobody, but he's still going 7-5 in the same division over and over and over and over.
Boston College is not UConn. They're not going 1-11 in the AAC and then leaving for the Big East. No, Boston College is a decent football team. They have been a decent football team for decades. I'm not saying that they're national championship caliber, but they're a decent team. They're good for 7 or 8 wins every year unless they absolutely blow it. So Adazio to me hasn't done enough. And to me, I also, and this is what I've said before, the problem that Willie Taggart has was that there was too much hype last offseason, entering the 2018 season. And Logan knows about this million times. There was too much hype with the buildup, and I think a lot of that was the resentment at the way the former coach, Jimbo Fisher, left and how that whole situation happened. And it was finally having somebody who, in his press conference, talked about how FSU was his dream job, how he grew up wanting to play for FSU, growing up as a Florida native, leading the program that he was a fan of. So I feel like that's another thing. I feel like hype also has played a role in all of this. And I feel that that's something that has come out. People make fun of the whole hashtag do something and all the other stuff that Willie Taggart brought in. I think if there's not nearly that much hype, nearly not that much pomp going into the 2018 season, I feel like, I'm not saying we've gotten a full pass, but he would have at least gotten a little bit more of a pass than he has gotten in this offseason.
I will emphasize that it's also not just 5-7, but it's the manner in which they lost these games. If they would have gone to Syracuse and lost by a score, even on opening night against what turned out to be a pretty bad Virginia Tech team, had they lost that game 24-21, had they, the biggest embarrassment was probably a win. Basically, Louisville handed them the game. Otherwise, they lose to one of the very worst teams, a team that lost and gave up 56 points at Kentucky. Kentucky couldn't score 56 points a month in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
That is just atrocious. That performance, they were just ill-prepared. Just every week, it just looked like they were just not prepared to play football, and that's his responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree with you on that one. I will ask you this question right here. FSU, let's use a hypothetical real quick. FSU beats Miami. Let's not forget, FSU blew that game. FSU was up 27-7 in that game and ended up losing 28-27.
That was one of their decent games, I noted.
Right, and I'll say I was in the stands for that one, going, what the hell's going on here? If they beat Miami, they go 6-6 and go to a bowl game. And let's say they win a bowl game. Let's say they win a bowl game, finish 7-6 for a second straight year. Are you ranking Willie Taggart as the worst returning coach on your list? Or is it because they went 5-7?
I have a lot of negatives to say about Dave Doran. He would probably succeed Dave Doran and possibly Pat Narduzzi. He'd probably be 9th.
So you will admit that the losing record played a role in your decision.
Sure,
put him as the worst returning coach.
And the manner in which they arrived at 5-7, I think, was atrocious. There are 5-7 teams out there that were competitive against Power 5 schedules, and Florida State was not one of them.
If Miami, and once again, Miami fans, if they want to jump on here and roast me for this one, that's fine. If Miami and Florida State play 10 times last season, and I'll say it, Florida State wins 8 times out of that.
8?
Out of those 6 games. 8 times out of 10 last season. If you want
the way they played every week?
If you want to look at the quality of players, if you want to look at the quality of talent, comparing those two rosters, Miami woke up essentially for the last 17 game minutes of action. Well, let's say the last fourth quarter, and came back and beat Florida State. If they play 10 times,
they outplayed Miami for 3.5 quarters.
Florida State wins 8 times out of 10.
I think Florida State hurt themselves too during that game.
If the two teams play as they performed on that day, yes, they do.
Right.
But so, we can play A plus B equals C all day. Miami bludgeoned Virginia Tech, blew them off the field, had no issue, beat them by 3 or 4 touchdowns. Well, Virginia Tech blew out Florida State. Miami played a lot. Miami played a lot of like teams that Florida State played, even though they play in different divisions, and they had much better results, and they weren't even that good.
Do I think Willie Taggart deserves a decent amount of the blame for what took place last season? Absolutely. And I have said that. And if they somehow, if it hits the fan this year and Florida State has another losing season, I will be the first person saying it's time to consider moving on. With that being said, Florida State, what took place last season was a one-time thing. And to sit here and blame Willie Taggart, I'm not just saying you, Mark. I'm not coming down on you or anyone else on here. But to sit here and blame Willie Taggart for what took place last year and to put it all on Willie Taggart for what took place last year is the wrong move. That's why when websites put him as the worst returning coach in the ACC, that's what I have a problem with. Because I feel like there's a lot of things you have to take a look at. And if they start off, and I'm not necessarily saying I think this is what will take place, but if they go into Clemson 5-0, which is a possibility, let's be honest, they could conceivably do that. If they get past Virginia, they would take on an NC State team that lost their quarterback, has lost a lot of weapons. The game is at home. If they can, if all the stars align and they go into Clemson 5-0 or 4-1, all of a sudden is the same criticism going to be there for Willie Taggart, simply because they have a better record at that point.
Generally, as I go through these coaches' rankings in all the conferences, I think most of these guys are capable coaches. It's not like I look at a particular conference and say, they've got 3 good coaches and the rest of these guys suck. I'll get down to the 9th or 10th position in most conferences and still feel this guy's doing a nice job. He's capable. If we grab in any of these other conferences, like mid-tier to lower-tier coaches, and they were going to inherit the Florida State job, I would expect them to go out there and go 8-4 with that schedule and that talent.
With last year's schedule? With
any year Florida State schedule and that talent, I would think that they can win 8 games. And again, I arrive at this more so based on how they looked. Nebraska went 4-8 last year. During the last 2/3 of the season, Nebraska was competitive in every game. They played better than Florida State. They didn't win as many games, 5-4, but they were competitive against team after team after team after decent team, after good teams. Michigan State, Ohio State. Florida State didn't show up 9 times.
Florida State played one team last season with a losing record in the regular season. Louisville was the only team they played with a losing record. So, to me, the argument of Willie should have done this, Willie should have done this. Willie was playing Willie was playing. The FSU Seminoles last season were playing arguably their toughest schedule in the history of the program. Only one time before in their history had they played a schedule where they only played one team that had a losing record by the time the regular season was over. But once again, am I saying 5-7 is justified after what happened last year? No. Should Willie take some of the heat for what took place last year? Yes, absolutely. Does he deserve as much as he got at the end of the season and as he had at the start of the offseason? And it has started to die down a little bit as more stuff has come out from before Willie even stepped foot in Tallahassee. But does he deserve as much slack as he got? Or excuse me, as much of the attacks as he got? No, not at all.
Not at all, unless it's coming from the voice of college football. I will note here that I made these rankings just after the season. Maybe 3 weeks after the regular season. Obviously, no games have been played, or not the regular season, but the complete 2018 season. I do note here in my notes that he had a nice turnaround at Western Kentucky and at South Florida. And again, I'm not locked in just on 5 and 7. Those turnarounds were good. I think he's given a little bit too much credit. They weren't remarkable turnarounds. He did a very nice job in building those programs to much better places 3-4 years later than where they were. His 1 year at Oregon, for me, is a neutral ranking. He went 7-5 for a team that should probably go 7-5. It's a decent year.
I mean, he increased. I'm just taking a look real quick at the numbers off the top of my head. So at Western Kentucky, he went from 2-10 to 7-5.
Mm-hmm.
At USF, he went from 2-10 his first year to 4-8 to 8-5. So he went up 6 games in 2 years there, 5 games in a year at Western Kentucky.
Yep.
At Oregon, he took them from, I believe it was 4-8 in 2016 to 7-5. So 5 wins.
Somebody else went 4-8. Yeah,
right, but that's what I'm saying. But he took a team that went 4-8. And took them to go 7-5.
Yeah, he also took about a quarter of the roster that played in a national championship game and went 7-5. You can look at that a number of ways. That Oregon situation wasn't as good or bad as either of those two ends of the spectrum.
So he gets none of the credit for what he did at Oregon, taking a team that went 4-8 and making them 7-5. You're not going to give him that credit, but you're going to give him more of the blame for a team that went 7-6. With a coach who abandoned. And let's call it what it is. Jimbo Fisher abandoned the Seminoles in 2017. He saw the writing on the wall. He also saw $75 million in College Station, Texas, and said, all right, I'm going to abandon FSU for this. Thank God, Odell Higgins. Watch out, QBs, my friends. It's Odell Higgins. I'm back again. Shout out to the 1988 video. Odell Higgins saved that season. Save that 2017 season. Otherwise, we're talking about Jimbo Fisher being the first losing coach in FSU history. You're a makeup game, and you are scheduling a game against Delaware State and a bad Syracuse team in 2017 away from a losing season in Jimbo's final year. So, but I guess my question to you, Mark, would be, why does Willie not get credit for what he did at Oregon, taking a dumpster fire at Oregon and building them into a winning record, but gets much of the blame, if not all of the blame, for what took place at FSU when it went down?
I will explain it again, but a little bit more succinctly and a little clearer, that while Willie Taggart did take a team that went 4-8 the previous season and they went 7-5, which is a nice upgrade. It's not remarkable. He also took a team that half the roster, if you're looking at the freshman and sophomore, that played in a national championship game and then the next year went 9-3. He also took half that roster and went 7-5. So it wasn't a remarkable coaching job that he did. It was that team should have gone 7-5.
And then went 9-3 and then went 4-8. So had a major drop off. We're not just talking about a little drop off.
There were half of that roster knew what it was like to play in a national championship game and go 9-3 the next year.
There are members of the 2017 FSU roster who were redshirts on the 2013 team that won a national title. They're walking around with the rings. So
yes, and Willie Taggart's going 5-7 with a roster that many of those players won an Orange Bowl, finished in the top 10 in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
I think a big note too that saved.
Hey, Logan's out here. Hey, how's it going?
Oh yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I was studying my classes, but I was hearing everything and putting it all together. So I think there's now the arguments going about the past, about the future, and all this kind of stuff. But I want to note on strictly last year and what, of course, Jimbo left Willie Taggart with, and how much still this is Willie Taggart's fault in the big run, because he was definitely high over his head. He was jumped into a program with a lot of talent, of course. There seemed to be like they were already on a run to go to a New Year's Six Bowl. It seemed like heading into the season. Fans were stupid hyped. I've never seen it like that. I've never seen the stadium like that before a home game kickoff before. Seems like the players were high over their heads quite a bit. And then during the season, we saw that Willie Taggart had lost control. It seemed like almost on the sideline. He's got two players punching other opponents. The can't sub in a guy to save their lives. Taking a quarterback out during the season against NC State on a road game where Florida State always has a hard time with, taking him out for the rest of the season to maybe have a chance at getting a bowl game, 6 wins, and you put in DeAndre Francois again, and in the first series or whatever, nothing happened. There's no changing around. It seemed like the coaching staff was all over the place, and then you have penalties after penalties, can't line up straight, can't figure out, you did all this. It's supposed to be simpler and all is supposed to be simpler, but Taggart can't figure out how to get that friggin' same diamond shape, throwing it to the side, play to work. There's a flag. You can almost expect it. I can call plays happening from the stands. All right, he's going to throw it to Jack West Patrick and instead of DJ Matthews off to the side on screen. And there it is. It's a 5-yard loss. So I think there was a lot. I think Willie Taggart was very excited for the talent that he had there. And I think he thought it'd be a smoother sailing to getting wins, but the ACC still has some very nice talent in there. It seems like there's only Clemson, but there's some teams that are moving up like Virginia. And even Virginia Tech has some chance with Fuente, who I think is a pretty decent coach in the ACC. But Willie Taggart has a little bit of blame. But there was a bad diseases that were still on that team, like with even former players. I'm not going to note some of them, but if around Florida State, there were some that just weren't good, but most of them have left by now. And I'm sure Willie Taggart has seen what it has done to his team. And so, I'm trying to keep it into the mind frame of like just what happened last year and how Willie Taggart was really how in some cases how just was all over the place. And you have your offensive coordinator like with Walt Bell and QB coach leaving too. And there was definitely some miscommunication on that coaching staff. Offensive line with great Coach Frey and Walt Bell. And there were some changes that need to be made, and that's what has happened. So I just kind of kept it on there a little bit from last year.
Logan, we're finishing up here. Would you put Willie closer to MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football's incorrect 12th spot, or would you put it closer to my correct top 5 spot? Which one would you put? No pressure.
Last year alone, and I'll be honest, I was very worried about Willie Taggart. I was pretty worried about just how the sideline and how not even being able to, you're playing against Florida and you're still getting flags about lining up in the formation. That's in high school, you would get ripped apart. So I would put Willie Taggart as of last season, and with the talent he had, and the support he was still getting even through that rough season, I would put him at number 10 in the ACC.
They're both wrong.
Jason,
anyway.
just to show you what, Jason, just to show you what I don't even hear what you guys exchanged there. But anyway, we need to get off the line. But just to show you what a fair debater I am, to your point of several minutes ago, I looked up my schedule rankings for last year. And I'm still trying to verify where I ranked them nationally because I didn't put that graphically and I can't listen to it. I did say and rank Florida State to have the toughest schedule in the ACC. And I believe I ranked it somewhere in the top 5 in the country.
I mean, your last 5 games of the season, and I know you have to win. You enter the last 5 games of the year 4-3, and you need to win 2 games. Your last 5 games are the team that wins the national championship, a team who plays in the college football playoff against that team that wins the national championship, another team that dominates in their New Year's Six bowl game. Yes, I just gave Florida credit and made me nauseous. And an NC State team that played in a decent Gator Bowl and a Boston College team that went to their bowl game. Once again, not making excuses. 5-7 and a losing record is unacceptable. But does he get a pass because of the crap storm that was there before? To me, yes, he does.
And again, to me, it's more the manner in which they played some of those games. And I'll put Clemson in a completely different category, although no Florida State team should lose 59-10 to Clemson. But anyway, I'll even disregard that game because Clemson rolled over almost everyone. Some teams did step up like a Syracuse and play them tough.
It was scoreless in the first quarter. After the first quarter was scoreless. Mark that down.
But a lot of teams played Notre Dame well, including a lot of teams in the ACC, like a pretty marginal Virginia Tech team. It was a 1-score game mid-third quarter.
But it was cold.
State got embarrassed.
It was cold, Mark. It was very cold.
I'm sorry.
It was very cold. One of the coldest games.
I'm sorry.
That was cold. You didn't.
I'm sorry.
You got to note that.
Hey, everybody that's calling me, I'm sorry, not the time or place. We're wrapping up our Florida State show. Would love to talk about this forever. I'm sure we could. Logan Robinson, Noel Game Day. We got Jason Parker, of course, on the line from Chop Chat. And despite some of his views, we will invite Jason back. Yes, of course we will invite Jason back. He's got a place here each and every week as one of our main contributors on Florida State Seminoles Live. You guys are the best. We appreciate it. And now I'll be back, I guess, next week with number 11 on my coaches rankings. And it may take us like a 4-part series to get through the ACC coaches rankings. Or maybe it won't, since we made it through Willie, or I think we did.
This is how we get through the summer. We're just going to go like this. This is going to get us into August.
That's right. Yeah, all right, exactly. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next Wednesday.
See you.
Everybody else, we will see you in as quickly as I can turn around this link, and we will set you up for Miami football talk at 8 o'clock Eastern time.